Good afternoon, Doc Nora. So this will be my recorded PowerPoint presentation report for creative writing. So here are the contents of this PowerPoint presentation. So first, I'll talk about the essentials and nature of creative writing, the process of creative writing, the two main specific genres of creative writing, which are the fiction and the non-fiction, and of course, writing poetry. So let's start with creative writing's nature and essentials. So what is creative writing? So when we talk about creativity, how do we really know if what we are doing is actually creative? So there are debates about how a specific creativity is expressed and measured. So how do we really measure creativity? Is there really a concrete way to measure, you know, being creative? So because when we talk about creativity, it's boundless, it's formless, because when you say beautiful, okay, because when you say creative, another attribute to that is having a beautiful characteristic. So when you say beautiful, it's the meaning changes or varies depending on the conception of one person to the other. So let's talk about a short history of creative writing. How did it begin? So it all started with Aristotle in 384 to 322 BC. So it originates before that because Aristotle's Poetics is an account of creative practices accepted for years and is no more than a fragment of the knowledge he gathered for study. So it all began in Athens, Greece, long before uh, we know that creative writing, before we know the modern creative writing. But the modern version of creative writing or creative writing workshops happened in 1940 with the foundation of Iowa Writers Workshop, although there were precursors including George Baker's 47 workshop at Harvard from 1906 to 1925. So this is just the short history of creative writing. So first, let us define what do we mean by creative writing. Creative writing, according to Melin 2019, it's the art of painting things up or putting a creative splash on history, as in creative nonfiction. So in any instance, creative writing makes you step out of the reality and into a new realm inspired by your own imagination. So with creative writing, we can be able to express our feelings, our emotions, and it is compared with academic writing, where in academic writing it's more on it deals with cold hard facts. So in creative writing, it's on the warmth side, it's more on the creativity side, according to Milan 2019. According to ACS.edu, creative writing is any writing that expresses events and emotions in an imaginative manner and whose primary intent is to arouse emotions. Creative writing can therefore be fiction using imaginative narration or nonfiction based on facts and events. So the common ground of fiction and nonfiction writing is the creativity the writer uses to express his or her thoughts and emotions. So Creativity happens inside the mind of the writer, where he or she employs several techniques in order for that creativity to be expressed in different mediums. And so, according to Morley 2007, writing can change people. For writing creates new worlds and possible universes parallel to an actual. At best, creative writing offers examples of life, nothing less. So, I would like to highlight here his definition of what creative writing is. It says creative writing offers examples of life. Um, because, for example, when we read a certain story, we know that it's not real, it's not true, but somehow these stories portray the different dimensions of humanity, on how humans feel about a specific situation. For example, if someone's mother just died in the story, and we all know from real life that it can happen, and we can imagine the dilemma, the problems, um, the suffering, the pain of having to experience that particular situation. So it's an example of life. Example because it's not real. It is not a real event. It's not factual, but the emotions, the feeling, it's just similar. Okay, another one from Morley again is William Faulkner said, a writer needs three things: experience, observation, and imagination. So any two of which at times, at any one of which can supply the lack of others. Yeah, I think this is basically true when you are just starting to write, because according to Faulkner, the writer needs three things: experience, observation, imagination. So it says here any two will do. So if you don't have imagination, then you can rely on your experience and observation. And basically, among the three, I think experience hits the list, because experience is not all about action and your physical reality, although it can be, but it's also the psychological reality. So in our psychological reality, we can depict fear, joy, enthusiasm, pain. So we can also dream. Yeah, and it's about your fears, uncertainties, failures, terrors, and losses. Yan. Experience for a writer is an art of losing. Even in a triumph, there is cost. The cost of experience is currency for creative work. This is quite deep for a writer like William Faulkner to actually describe what creative writing is, because the cost of experience is currency for creative work. So because the more we experience about life, the more that we can share. So I think he is right when he said this, that the experience is the currency of a creative work. So the more we experience a particular thing, the more that we can write about it. So for example, in my situation, so I had a very difficult childhood, for example. So we live in poverty. I grew up in poverty. I know how it feels to be, being you have nothing to eat, for example, in a day, or you're different from your classmates because you don't have a decent uniform to wear in school. So I know how that feels. So when I write, it's easier for me to navigate through those experiences with words, of course. I'm not saying it's easy because it can be that you have an experience, but you have difficulty with the language that you are using. That could, that could be another story. But in being a writer per se, it's easier for a writer to express um, poverty, for example, to write about poverty than someone who doesn't experience it, or from someone who doesn't have a direct experience about that specific topic. So another interesting topic about creative writing is the process, which I just got from the Book of Morley 2007. Here's the main reference that I will be using. So it's from the Cambridge Introduction to Creative Writing. So this will be my main reference. So we will talk about the process of creative writing according to Morley. So the first one, according to Morley, is that writer needs to prepare. So when we say prepare, we are involved with active reading, okay? Active reading, when you say active reading, you are talking with the author, of course not, of course not really the actual conversation, but it's more on the metaphysical conversation, like you are conversing with the text that you are reading. Yan. Imitation. Okay, so for example, if you have a favorite novel and you know how a specific writer starts a story, so it can be a certain pattern for you to start. How does Edgar Allan Poe write his short story? Yeah, so usually it begins with the introduction of the setting, where he would tell us the setting, the gothic scenario where it's eerie, it's dark, and what else? Yeah, so there are also authors like, for example, Mitch Albom. Okay, his style of the in mediare, or when you begin at the middle. Yeah, he usually employs this in all his works, where you usually start at the middle part of the story, like it's already a climax and you're just beginning. So there are writers who have several techniques. Okay, and another one is research. Yeah, so research is important, and when we say research, it's not just about knowledge or head knowledge research, but also where you have to be in depth with the experience. So for example, if you will be writing about the life of comfort women, you have to understand the era where they came from. You have to understand their life during the war, and their motivations, and the different challenges. So for you to effectively write about it, you have to do some research. Okay. Play and reflection. Yes, play happens when we try to make believe characters, uh, play what if, what will happen if this and that, if we change this and that. So, yeah, it's also part of reflecting because we are trying to get the information from us, from our own perspective. Like you detach yourself as a writer, and how do you think will others see this particular instance? Yeah, so detachment from the work itself. So settling your project, deciding exactly what you are going to do, and researching ways to help you achieve it, including researching history and other factual data for fiction and non-creative fiction. That's preparing. So at this stage, motivation helps, and discipline and habit will keep striking that light inside you every day. So you just, according to Morley, you just need to ask yourself two questions. What am I preparing for? How shall I do this? There. So you just need to ask your question, these two questions for you to be guided, and eventually really prepare uh, for the creative writing task or prompt that you have. What am I preparing for? For example, in the portfolio which Doc Nora has given us. So if I will be using that as the context of these questions, what am I preparing for? So for example, writing about myself, writing a memoir about myself. How shall I do this? Okay, so I have to reflect, I have to give a specific part of my childhood, which for me is more challenging, a piece of history about myself. What went what did I what are the challenges, where I went through to finally break free from these challenges, or something like that. And I can also do that memoir by being vulnerable about the weaknesses, the challenges that I have experienced, and by being open to reflect and be open to other people, because I believe that when we are writing, it's never I sorry it's always an extension. Your work is always an extension about yourself. So although there are some debates or literary criticisms about this, like I think it was Jacques Derrida who said that we are separated from the artwork or the literary work that we have produced. I beg to disagree with that, because if there are people who can really do that and who can really deny that experience, I personally believe that you cannot separate yourself from your craft or from your work, because it's always an extension of your fears, of your happiness, of your experiences. It's although it's not about you all the time, but the pieces of yourself is imprinted on the the artwork or the literary work that you have created. May that be a poem or a story or a memoir, especially a memoir. There you go. Another is planning. Okay, planning is an act of premeditation, right? So, for example, a poet may choose to produce a collection of poems that possesses a governing architecture, mentally structuring a whole book of say, connected confessions. So a creative nonfiction writer usually begins with subject, not structure. Yeah, so according to Morley, that's the mistake of the beginners or those who are just starting to write or into creative writing. So sometimes, instead of focusing on the subject, okay, they tend to focus on the structure itself. They worry about what will be the beginning, what will be the climax, what will be the ending of this story, without really looking at the subject. Who is the subject, or who are the characters of this story? What does these individual characters have something have something in common, or what are the what are the differences? Okay, and what is this story all about? What will be this story all about? What's the sense of writing this story? Something like that. And of course, beginning. So the a final work begins as it were in media re, literally in the middle. So do not begin with the intended first sentence of, or prose, first line of poetry. Get black on white. Used to be Maupassant's advice. And that is what you should do. Writers agree that getting started on a new piece of writing is the most difficult of all the writing processes. Yan. According to Morley, uh, it's very difficult for writers to, I think all writers will all agree, even the the newbie, that it's usually the most difficult part of really doing anything is really starting it or beginning it. Even for example, in writing this report, at first, I felt that I need to, just take a rest and procrastinate, and tell myself, oh, I still have 2 weeks, I still have like 2 weeks to do this, something like that. And then sometimes I don't know how to be disciplined in terms of beginning a specific task. But again, just like what Morley said, you have to begin, because if you don't, then there will be no improvement. And I think there was one essay, I'm sorry, not essay, one quote that says, we don't need to strive for perfection. Instead, we need to strive for development. Okay, and that's true. Even in writing, we don't need to be perfect. Okay, um, just like what Zuckerberg or Mark Zuckerberg, I remember in one of his speeches, he said that um, we humans tend to be very perfectionist, and sometimes we sabotage ourselves by thinking that when I am already perfect, or when I'm already capable to do this, then that's the time that I'll take an action. And then 4 years 4 years happen, and then another year, then it became 10 years, and you are not yet starting. You don't like to start because you are somehow afraid. And he also said that if we really want to achieve something, we have to start. For example, in writing, if you want to finish, let's say, a novel, you have to start. And the ideas, the eureka moment will come in once you are already starting, or when you are already on that journey. Like he said, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook didn't just pop out into his head. It's a continuous process of committing lots of mistakes, committing lots of you know, errors and tribulations. And he said that what matters most is that you learn from each mistakes. And Morley also said that when we begin, yan, we try to just, start, get into writing, and eventually, we'll never know we are already improving. So begin by free writing and free associating sentences until some patterns emerge that begin to intrigue you. Um, so the sound they make, the rustle of possibility. There. And the next one is what Morley termed as flowing. There, flowing. So I heard this word way back when I was in college and I joined this drama club. And usually the director would say, "You go with the flow. You go with your flow. Okay, just don't think about the script. Just act, and you go with the flow." So let's see whether the flow that the director was talking about is just the same as what Morley said. So creative flow has been described by psychologists as a state of total absorption, a superfine focus in which the writer has clear goals but is writing at a stretch, at the limits of their intelligence, in fact. I think this is so true because creative flow happens. I would like to, share my experience. For instance, when I'm in my flow, for example, in writing, um, I don't think about when I write. I just type it. I just, think about the characters, how a character felt on that particular period of time, what was motivated the character, what's her intentions. You just type that particular scenario without minding whether am I committing a wrong spelling, am I committing a wrong grammar, something like that. You just type it because you are in the flow. And for example, again, if you are painting and you don't really mind if you're not using the right brush, as long as you have the flow and you can feel that the colors are meeting the hues and the tone that you have in your mind, that's the flow of creativity. And that's, I think, how creative people survive in this industry, by, of course, discipline, by beginning, and of course by flowing the creativity. Okay, or what I remember, also I read from this book by Morley, 2007. There was this Spanish writer, uh, and it says there that whenever we want to uh, understand, or really if we ever we want to understand or really create the craft that we have, we need to go with our duende, D-U-E-N-D-A, D-E, D-U-E-N-D-E. So according to one of a famous Spanish playwright, it says there that we have to look for that inspiration. Yan. Dun sa Greeks, I think ang tawag nila dun is the muse, the musings, diba? Yung inspiration. Yan. So the act of writing becomes an end in itself. Flow can lead to a skewed sense of time. Distractions and worries shift into a mental background. See? Instead of you getting distracted and you worry, it is drifted into a creative avenue where you see possibilities, where you see that just the components are just making sense, and they just, meet your own standard as a writer. This is possibly why writing can become addictive and is perceived as therapeutic. Yeah, however, it takes practice to be in that zone, and it is unwise to stay too long in it. All right, so Morley said that it's unwise to stay too long in it, probably because in writing, we also need some we also need to have some discipline, um, and when you say discipline, it isn't just about your intention to write and enjoy what you're doing. And of course, we have to really enjoy what we're doing, but not to the point that we are uh, too absorbed with what we want to happen without really considering some factors, like, for example, the readers and the message of the story that you want to share to the world. So something like that. And then another one is the silence reservoir. So writing process is not unidirectional, but a total, an organic process. It is unwise to imagine that incubation wakes one evening. Beginning rises with the moon and continuing follows like sunrise. So each phase smashes or melds into the other. I really love how Morley write this book. Is really a creative, writer, because if it's a book that is very technical, then he would not, make use of these kinds of words. He would not make use of metaphor and similes in describing terminologies like this. So the process may be rupture, but sometimes feels like a sequence of ruptures or even a series of running battles with language. Yeah, I understand and I believe with this. For example, incubation is part of fluency and flow. You will often find your fluency naturally slowing in order to allow the reservoir of language and ideas within your unconscious mind to replenish. Leave the field. Stop writing. According to Morley, you leave the field, you stop writing and finish for the day and go for a walk. You give yourself the time to recover your eloquence through silence. All right? So you give yourself the time to recover your eloquence through silence. Silence is itself a type of eloquence for thinking. About writing is writing. Idleness itself is also conducive, but we cannot get away with. Yes, I am not sure how Morley interpret this silence reservoir, but as a student, as a creative writing student, I think what Morley is trying to imply here is when we write, of course, we want to have the flow. We're looking for the flow. But if we think we want to finish what we are writing, but you feel that it's not enough, you still have to develop some characters and all that. What we need to do is pause. Okay, what we need to do is pause and be quiet, be silent. Think about the, the other possibilities instead of continuously writing, and with the only goal in mind, the only goal in mind is to finish. So according to Morley, we need to understand that a writing process is not unidirectional. It's not like I'll sit here from 5 in the morning, I'll start and I'll finish by 7 p.m. It's not like that. So, yeah, it's unidirectional. And you need to have some incubation time. When you say incubation time, it's like as a writer, you let that, or you sit with your idea and let it, grow. Let that idea grow in its time. Yan. And I think this is the last one. Breakthroughs and finish lines. So one of the matters you will begin to apprehend is not progress as such, but a feeling of completion when form and structure click together sweetly in your mind. So you will also begin to be able to gauge where your work has reached in relation to the target you set. So this is actually beating the deadline. So since this book is about how to become a creative writing, so Morley assumed that your work will be published. So what he is telling us about this is beating the deadlines. Like, you don't start a book and you just started a book and you don't actually finish it. So it's not the goal of a writer. It must not be the goal of a writer. So the goal must be, if you start writing a book, then you need to have a self deadline so that you will be able to finish it. I think it's not the last pala. So this is the last one. Failing and failing better. So here, a deadline is like a supervisor who tells you impolitely to get on with it. The deadline pays heed to your writing. It does not pay heed to your life. The deadline set for the submission of a student's portfolio of writing pays little heed to the different ways that students write, learn, and live. The date is the same for everybody, and only illness or accident can provide excuses. Yes, the deadline is a necessary falsification of time. What's more, somebody else has usually placed it in your calendar there. So ito ay assumption na may mga writers in America, usually they have already editors, and they really plan they really plan what they are going to publish. So they have to really set deadlines. Ayan. So let's talk about another interesting topic on creative writing. The two main genres, creative fiction and non-fiction. So creative fiction and creative non-fiction. So writing literary fiction, according to John Updike, is nothing less than subtlest instrument for self-examination and self-display that mankind has invented yet. Yes. So if I'll remember two words from John Updike's definition, it would be self-examination, self-display. There. And that's true. When I was young, my teacher would read to us stories. Like when we were in kindergarten, she would read about the tortoise and the hare. And of course, you have to understand that when you were young, you don't really know the different values yet. Like sometimes I get confused why friends like the turtle and the hare had to make a race. Like, why? Why do they need to compare? Obviously, their speed. Like, why would hare challenge his friend who is, a slow one, because that's his nature. Turtles are really slow. They carry their house, and nature dictates that he has to be slow. So I when I was young, I usually ask myself, why would a hare, the rabbit, why would the friend rabbit, why would he ask his friend to have some race like that if they're really friends, right? So, you know, things like that, these fairy tales or stories, nurseries, stories that we had when we were young. It's actually a preparation for a more complicated experiences that we can have as adults. Like here, we can self-examine. Like in the same context, the tortoise and the hare. Um, why would these animals compare? Why would they compare? For what? See, even though it's just fiction in my head, it's like, yeah, children's story, but it's actually teaches us something that is present in our humanity, that we love to compare, we love to race. Like when we got older, we sometimes ask ourselves, oh, I need to be someone who has a good job, so I'll be recognized by my family. I need to be better than my sister because my mother has to see me, something like that. Or in work, I have to be recognized because that's the time that they would, see my worth as a person. So with that particular story, we were, even though that's just fiction, we don't really see a rabbit talking, a turtle a turtle talking. We really don't see these creatures racing in the in the real environment. They don't really race. It's fictional. It's made up. But the the self-examination, the self-display of mankind, it's there. The humanity, the lessons that we can learn about society, it's there in that simple and yet intricately uh, woven story. Another one, literary fiction is the customary objective for an apprentice to creative writing. The making of novels, novellas, and short stories, as well as the modes of flash fiction. And what's this? Wait, yeah, yeah. So let's start with the different kinds of fiction. So the first one is what we call flash fiction or short. Okay. So a flash fiction or a short is a subgenre of the short story characterized by limited word length of anything between 250 and 1,000 words. So the entire action may take place within the space of a page, You think of them like a prose haiku. So sometimes the shortest versions are also called nonfiction. They're popular on internet publishing sites. Yep. Okay. So one of the examples I searched is about these short or flash fiction by Franz Kafka. Give it up. Yeah, let's see what this story is all about. It was very early in the morning, the streets clean and deserted. I was walking to the station as I compared the tower clock with my watch. I realized that it was already much later than I had thought. I had to hurry. The shock of this discovery made me unsure of the way. I did not yet know my way very well in this town. Luckily, a policeman was nearby. I ran up to him and breathlessly asked him the way. He smiled and said, "From me, you want to know the way?" "Yes," I said, "since I cannot find it myself." "Give it up, give it up," he said, and turned away with a sudden jerk, like people who want to be alone with their laughter. All right, so it's a very short encounter of, I think, someone is a traveler and someone is a tourist police, I guess, and the tourist um and when if someone is new to a particular town, we can assume, or it's implied maybe, that the the character, the one who is the I character here is actually a tourist. Because how did I say that? It was very early in the morning. I mean, the streets clean and deserted. I was walking to the station. As I compared the tower clock with my watch, I realized that it was already much later than I had thought. So it's like maybe this guy just arrived from the airport, so having two time two time sorry two time zones. Like for example, if you're traveling from Manila to Europe, of course you will have two different time zones. So see, so the traveler had, maybe he just arrived from the airport, and because he was traveling, he forgot to set his clock to the country where he's now. And then I realized it was already much later than I had to hurry. The shock of this discovery made me unsure of the way. See, he is confused. He had to worry. He is shocked. He was shocked. I did not yet know my way very well in this town. So see, this particular part here, this particular part here will tell us that he's not sure of the way. So maybe he confirmed that he's a tourist. And then I did not yet know my very well in this town. Luckily, a policeman was nearby. So there was this policeman, and based from his English, we can be sure that this policeman was a native, and in fact, he knows little English, I think, because of the construction, the way the sentence is constructed. From me, you want to know the way. Like, he was asking the traveler, really, you want to know you really want to know the way from me, something like that. And then of course the traveler answered yes. and I cannot, yeah, of course, I cannot find it myself, so I have to ask you. And then the tourist police said, give it up, give it up. So here we can have like, if we're going to analyze here, maybe it means like you need to give, or not give up. It's not really to give up, because that is really inappropriate or out of context response, semantically speaking. So maybe the police was just trying to say like, you go up. Maybe that's what he wants to say. Turn away with the suddenly, like people want to be alone with their lot. Yeah. So give it up. This is an example of a short. The next one is a short story. So we all know what a short story is. All high excitements are necessarily transient. Yes, because in short story, unlike with novels, we usually highlight the most exciting part of a story. That's why we call it short story. And a novella, yes, it's similar with novels, only that novellas are similar in structure to short stories, and they often open with an event, but may then move backwards in time to give background material. Yan. So, reversal of fortune of a new event within the right. Yan. And of course, novel, we're very familiar with this. Yan. The next is, creative nonfiction. So, creative nonfiction exercises an almost incredible gravity. Playwrights, novelists, and journalists are pulled into it along with popular scientists, psychologists, and mathematicians. Yan. It catalyzed the movement called self-inclusive scholarship, in which academics place themselves into their work and talk personally about their role within the research process, even though to the real world, scholarship and criticism has always been a personal endeavor. Yeah. So what are the devices that we can use? So creative nonfiction, these devices will include many of the characteristic methods of the practice of fiction. This might include story-like qualities such as hooking the reader with the first sentence, develop convincing real-life scenes and characters, using link events and narrative. Speaking with the reader, yes. Speaking with the reader is the attitude of the work should not merely echo your writing voice. It should be your voice, even to the extent of it being your spoken voice. So here, it just simply implies that as writers, we have to be honest with what we feel, with what we see about the world around us, regardless whether people will accept us or not. You just need to be honest. Memoir and memory. Yan. So, here in writing a memoir and a memory, begin by writing down what you consider the first memories of your own life. Okay. You try to remember the details, your clothes, the ornaments, your house, the weather, sensations, landscape, the speech. Then interview somebody. So aside from yourself, you can also have another secondary information, like you ask your mother or your sister how was your childhood, when, or what were your unforgettable experience with them, so that it will be, the point of view will be different, and you have multi-dimension aspects on how you interpret a specific event. Like for example, you remember the time when in a family gathering, uh, you would be, let's say, bullied by your cousins. So for you, it's a negative experience because you felt shy, you felt that, you have low self-esteem. But if, for example, you ask your cousins and how they perceive that or look that experience, maybe they will just tell you that we were just joking it and you were laughing as well, so we thought you're okay with that. So for them, it's just an unforgettable event that is, something that is not related to bullying, but something that is a happy event. So it's different perception. This different. Yeah, and of course, writing poetry. Yeah, and we need to, according to this, rhythm is made of beats. Yeah, and whether of a skin drum in a frog's throat or a hoof drum. For living creatures, rhythm is used to create and defend territory, and yes, you will use it in communication. So, poems are made up of lines, of words that do not usually reach the far side of the page. So, words themselves um, has small amount of music. So, that's why some traditional writers of poems would, they would observe the meter and the rhyme of the words that they're using in their poems. Yeah. So after discussing that, we'll now proceed with the benefits of writing creatively. So, what are the benefits of writing creatively? So, what are the perceived benefits of creativity? Okay, first on our list is it improves cognitive ability. So one of the benefits of creative writing, according to Esser and Ayas 2021, in their studies about how creative writing helps the brain, studies show that creative writing activities significantly improve narrative writing skills and improve, to some extent, advanced reading awareness. So it has two perceived effect on the brain. That is the improvement of the narrative writing skills and advanced reading awareness. Yeah, so it's very helpful to write creatively. Another by Bean 2018, and here it's actually a classroom experience. This article is about her experience as a teacher in elementary, and during her writing activity classes, he would ask the students about their personal experiences and how did they overcome these trials and challenges in their life, their person and their family. So he would ask the students to write about it and share it to the class. So at the end of the activity, Bean noticed that it built the resilience of his students in terms of coping with the challenges, that they have as students. Another one, according to Donovan 2022. So here are the benefits of writing poetry. Okay, it's therapeutic. It gives self-awareness. It helps us to be creative thinker. It builds connection. So among these four, I think I could easily relate with the benefit of being therapeutic. Writing poetry is very therapeutic. Yeah, it's basically writing about, aside from it's shorter, in writing poetry, you need to think not in very long sentences, but in words and the sound of it, words that rhymes, and symbolisms, symbolisms, and the similes and metaphors of of ideas. So it's very therapeutic because it gives you time to, it's the safe, yeah, it provides safe way to vent, examine, and understand our feelings in a very safe place. Another one, catharsis, cathartic. Yeah, it's really a cathartic experience because here you are creating something new, creating something uh, novel, something that has not yet existed before. So it's a cathartic experience. It improves your critical thinking. Yes. Sometimes if you are a negative thinker and you use critical thinking, sometimes it's our way to battle, or let's say stop negativity by being a critical thinker, because here we express our thoughts and ideas in poetry. It pushes us to challenge ourselves intellectually. So instead of just thinking about it negatively, you write a poem and realize that it's not the end. So yeah, write a poem about your problems. Next, languages speaking. The practice of poetry strengthens language, writing, and speaking skills. Yes, I could not agree to that more. Developing perspective, empathy, and worldviews. Yes, definitely. Because when you are writing, you tend to experience not just your own, but of others. So that's the way we develop our empathy and our view of about the world. There. So these are the benefits of writing poetry. So thank you very much for listening. So here are the references that I have used in this presentation, including the images. So thank you so much for listening. God bless.